Excellent. Welcome, everyone. We're excited to have you here. I'm Katya Kletter. I lead the marketing activation here at Willo, and I'm excited to host this conversation and even more excited to welcome a special guest who brings an incredible expertise and energy to the topic. Joining me is Lisa Copeland, a registered dental hygienist, certified speaking professional, and a founder of Communicate with Influence. Tonight, she'll be sharing insights on intentional conversations in the office and how to better influence your patients, team members, who are all of you joining here on the call. Lisa is also a global speaker, speaking coach, and a former Ironman athlete. And that level of dedication shines through everything she does. I'm so thrilled to have you here. Welcome, Lisa. And
Thank
take it
you.
away.
Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to interact with you, Katya, and I really appreciate you inviting me to do this with you. So hi, everybody. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. We're going to dive right in so we can get as much information to you as possible tonight. Last spring, I decided to plant a garden. And I grew up in the Northeast region of the US you'll probably know where I grew up, in Scranton, Pennsylvania, where they filmed The Office. So a lot of you are probably Office fans. I had a father that was Pennsylvania Dutch, and he was a farmer. And so I grew up having amazing vegetables in the garden. We would go out and pick them. Our tomatoes look just like the ones you see in the picture. That house is where I grew up. I lived in that house almost my whole life. We moved there when I was 6 years old, I think. And that's my dad. He was 89 in that picture. He lived to be 97. So a hardy boy, right? And so I learned farming from him. We had zinnias like that every year in our garden as well. I now live in the high desert in a region of Utah. I live in Park City, and the growing season is super short. Rain is very, very scarce, and sunshine is very, very abundant. And so I knew farming was going to be challenging. I really just wanted tomatoes like that. I really miss those. So before I started, I researched the planting zones, and I went to the local nursery to chat with the experts about what plants did best in our environment. And so I purchased the plants that I thought would be most likely to thrive. And I got the right fertilizer and the soil, and I was all ready to begin. And so my plan was to start every day with evaluation, right? Did they need water? Did they need weeding? Did they need feeding? And to really customize a plan according to that. What I forgot to add into the equation was the frequent moose that visited and enjoyed the harvest also. So this was before I even got the plants into the ground. A little baby moose came to visit and found the plants and just had a heyday with them. So the lessons that I learned were pretty simple, but they were really essential for my garden to succeed. They need customized care based on exposure to the elements, weather, sun, soil, and of course, the wildlife. If any of the essentials were missing, the garden wasn't going to thrive. And I'll clue you in on a little bit more about this guy in a bit. So today what we're going to talk about are the essentials of intentional conversations. It's the lifeline of our dental practices, and it has a really great ripple effect to help us thrive. One intentional conversation or exchange can build trust, you can shift people's behavior, and you can boost performance. And by the way, if you all have questions as we're going along, type them into the chat and Katya can bring them into the conversation so that we can address them as we're going through the program. The old saying goes, you don't get a second chance to make a first impression. And your first impression and follow-up, which we're going to talk about a little bit later, are the two most important aspects to having a really impactful presence with your practice or with your office. If you're able to, I want everybody to hold your hands up in the air like a goalpost, just like this. I'm going to take one hand down so I can control the mouse, but keep your hands up in goalposts. And on the count of 3, what I want you to do is snap your fingers. So everybody ready? 1, 2, 3. And I saw you all doing that. I was envisioning it. So according to psychology, or positive psychology, excuse me, People make an immediate and lasting assessment of you in the time it takes you to snap your fingers or blink your eyes. Think about it, right? How quick that is when you blink your eyes. And then we spend the rest of our time finding evidence to prove that our original impression of that person was correct, whether it was or not. We spend a lot of time trying to prove we were right. Has anybody ever done that? Type in the chat for me. Has anybody ever made a very quick first impression of someone? And it's a very hard thing for you to change, right? It's really difficult to go back and reassess and change your opinion of that first assessment. Has anybody done that? We've all encountered a team member that knows every single patient and their family members and everything about them the moment they step into the office. So they remember the vacation destinations, birthdays, graduations. You might even be working with a person like that. If you have that person in your office, or you might be that person, don't ever let them go. They are so valuable to your practice because people love relationships, and patients are looking for relationships now, and that person is super valuable. But what makes them so special? What do they do that makes them stand out to our patients and to the other team members? And more importantly, do you think we can learn from them and try to duplicate the experiences that they create? The answer is absolutely. My entire career was in dental implantology, prosthetic implantology, and perio and restorative hygiene. So I saw very few children. I began working for a general dentist in Seattle, and I started to see more younger patients. And I don't have children, and I've never worked with children. So it was really challenging for me. I had a bonus that 2 other hygienists in the practice had children, and they were absolutely incredible with younger patients. And so I just started paying attention to what they were doing and started mimicking what and how they interacted with the younger patients. And they were so good with them. And I learned so much just by listening to them. And it created a much more positive experience for both me and my patients. It just made it a win-win situation. So if you have people that are very special in your practice, learn from them, because we all have different strengths, right? We all have different things that we're good at and that other people can learn from as well. So these are the 3 pillars for today's presentation. We're going to talk about the patients first. Then we'll talk about the players, which are the team members, all of you on the call tonight, and then the practice. So we're currently experiencing a shift in dentistry from product centricity to people centricity. And it's a very interesting dynamic right now, because our practices are looking for increased revenue and how to make more money, and are really product centric in that aspect. Patients are looking for more people centricity. And so we're having to bridge this gap and figure out how to get the best of both worlds, really. And so investing in your team and your patients, it's critical for you to have your practice to succeed. And to be patient-centric, a strong organizational culture is absolutely essential. It involves a deep understanding of your patients and also the people that you're working with, right? We have to get to know each other more on a personal level and really understand how each person likes to be interacted with, patients and the team members. So we're going to dive deeper into this topic first. According to the Barrel Institute, the patient experience is the sum total of every touch point before, during, and after their appointment. And the Barrel Institute is a company that focuses on elevating the human experience in healthcare. They're a really nice resource for, I think, dentistry as well. I use a lot of their information in my presentations. And so basically, there are 4 factors that make up the patient experience. Number 1 is the interactions, right? The people, the processes, the policies, the communications, and the actions, and the environment of our practices. The second is the culture. And that's the visions and the values in the team and the community that impact the patient's experience. Third are perceptions. And everything is recognized, understood, and remembered by the patients and supported by the people. But here's the thing about perceptions. They vary based on individual experience, because I could have the same experience as Katya and we may interpret it completely differently. And so perceptions have a little bit of an interpretation factor to them. And then last is the continuum of care. And that means that every interaction within a practice or with a provider before, during, and after the delivery of care. And so that's the continuum after the appointment or before the appointment. And how we influence these four pillars is going to optimize the patient experience and their healthcare journey. And so if we are really good in 3 of the 4 categories, we should recognize that we need to work on one of those categories, but because it's the whole thing together that creates a better experience for our patients. I recently had my hip replaced, and they did several. That's what happens when you do a lot of Ironmans and triathlon training, apparently. And so they did a lot of things that were really unique to make my experience much better. Pre-surgically, they had videos with basic activities of daily living that I watched so that I could learn how to adjust to my new situation post-surgery. They also had a what to expect Zoom call for the patients and the caregivers. And my husband was on that call with us, and it was amazing. The questions he came up with, I never would have thought of, because he was going to be the caregiver, right? So the day of the surgery, they made the check-in really easy. There was no exchange of money. Every single doctor, PA, nurse, anesthesiologist, everyone involved in the surgery came in and introduced themselves and answered questions. One of the best things that they did, and you can do this if you're an office that you're doing complex procedures, root canals, oral surgery, anything that is maybe under sedation. They used a compassionate connection card, and you can see it on the lower left of the screen there. And it was encased in they could wipe it off, they could clean it off after every patient, and it said, "What is the most important thing we need to know about you today?" And my answer was, I'm a true redhead. And if any of you are redheads on the call, you already know why. But if you're not, redheads have a particular gene that anesthesia, and we have a lot of complications with medical procedures, but anesthesia is one of the biggest. We take a lot more, we don't stay sedated long, and we come out of it very quickly. And so they needed to know that. And the anesthesiologist, I was the first patient of the day, and he came in, he goes, "Really? You're a true redhead?" He just kind of laughing about it. But that card they took and they tucked it into my blanket before they took me into the OR so that they could make changes to the formulas in their anesthesia. And the anatomical landmarks are also different on redheads. So you learn about a little bit about redheads tonight, as well as communication. Post-surgery, I had PT in the hospital. In that lower right picture, I am up walking 6 hours after my surgery. As soon as the block wore off, they had me up and running, not running, but they did have me doing steps. And then I had at-home PT, and every single day they sent me a text to give them an evaluation of my pain level and anything that I wanted to talk about with them. So I'd like to introduce you to Henrietta. I had to name her because I really struggled with this actually being a part of my body. And we had a really rough start together, but we're now living in perfect harmony. I'm snowboarding better than I ever have. I'm back to mountain biking, and we're living very well together. But it was a little bit of a struggle in the beginning. But I'm telling you this because they did so many things right. And you can take some of the information that I gave you about my surgery and the things that they did and apply it into dentistry. Consider applying this framework to every conversation, whether it's with your patients, your colleagues, or your referring partners or referral partners. It's just a reminder that trust is not built on knowledge or credentials. It's built on the way we show up and the way that we communicate. So the H stands for honesty. When we're talking, particularly to our patients about, let's say, insurance, right? They want the truth. They want to know that you're being honest with them. So speak truthfully. And even if the conversation is difficult, maybe their insurance isn't going to cover a lot of the procedure that they need, or they just value that transparency. And I think everybody is looking for that in our society nowadays. They just want transparency. The E stands for empathy, and it's not about listening to understand. It is about listening to understand, not replying. And I know I'm guilty of this. A lot of times when I'm in a conversation, I'm thinking about what I'm going to say and not truly listening to understand what the person is talking to me about. I have to work really hard on that sometimes because I'm a very fast mover and a short attention span. And so I really have to focus on paying attention to people, right? And we want to understand, reflect that understanding back to them. If you see that your coworker's body language is a little bit different than the way they normally come in that day, ask them, hey, is everything okay? Right? That empathy goes a long way. The A is for accountability. Do what you say you're going to do. And if you can't, acknowledge it. Be accountable for what you can and cannot do. And it really shows the patient's respect and your team members, right? Because it respects their time and their expectations. So let's say you see a patient on a late Friday afternoon and they need to get information from you about a treatment plan. And so I would say, Cheryl, we're going into the weekend here, and we're also a holiday weekend. So I will get this information to you early next week. I just wanted you to know that you won't have it immediately. Is that okay with you? And I always shake my head yes when I'm saying something like that, because they'll agree with you and shake their head yes as well. And then the R stands for reliability. Be the person that others can count on all day, every single time. If you're a reliable person, people will come to you and they will trust you and they will know that you will get the job done. The language that we use really impacts how information is received with people that we're interacting with. And so a couple daily communication interactions that I thought of that are on a regular basis in our practices is our medical updates and insurance discussions. So we'll talk about that next. So let's look at medical updates first. According to the ADA, every patient of record should be asked to complete a completely new health history form every 2 years. Now, that doesn't mean we're not doing it until that 2-year mark. We're updating it every single time, but a completely new one is recommended every 2 years. And the process can really reduce the possibility that the patient's going to have inadvertently neglect to tell us about something that could interact with anesthesia or anesthetic that we're using or a procedure that we're doing. And so a few things that we can do to alleviate that stressful conversation, because I'm pretty sure most of you experienced, ask a patient about, has anything changed since the last time you were in? And they get a little bit upset with you and say, oh, nothing has changed, and just move on. And we can't do that, right? We have to ask intentional and open-ended questions. And so at the appointment, before the next time they're due to update their health history, remind them and say, at your next health history, we're going to have you update a complete health history. So I can send a link to you for you to update it that way. Or if you'd like, I will put it in the mail. I'll send you a hard copy and I'll put a little note in your records now to remind myself to do that. Which way would you like me to communicate that to them, right? You've already said we're doing this next time, right? Then we want to talk about the importance of it. Accurate information can really help healthcare providers make better decisions about your care. And so we want to avoid potential drug interactions and prevent medical errors, right? Explain to them how important it is. Make it easy, either have a portal online that they can do it, or if it's usually more senior patients that would want the update as a paper form, or tell them you'll schedule an appointment for 15 minutes early and we'll have someone available to help you go through it, but bring a list of your medications, right? You've got to customize for what's going to work best for that particular patient. Use very basic language. The jargon can be really confusing and intimidating for patients. And I know most people, and myself included, if we get confused or we don't understand, what do? we do nothing, right? We don't move forward because we're confused and we don't understand the conversation. Another important aspect is to emphasize the confidentiality, right? Assure the patients that their medical information is confidential and we only share it with providers on a need-to-know basis. So if we refer you, we would share your information. So that's really important to people nowadays too, because of so much that's happening with fraud and people having their identity stolen. So that's really important to emphasize to them. And then I know some offices who provide incentives. And so let's say, okay, we're going to have you update your medical history next appointment. We offer a free whitening syringe or a gift card to patients who send them in before their appointments. And that's a really nice way to incentivize people. And it takes a little bit of the heat off, number one, the person who has to have this conversation with the patient, and it makes the patient more likely to complete the medical update. The other conversation that can get a little bit uncomfortable sometimes are insurance conversations. And we want to use more supportive insurance languages. So when we're navigating those conversations, be really accurate and be truthful. But the language that we use can also influence the way that the patient perceives their insurance support, not coverage, support or coverage aid, right? We want to change our vocabulary, and we've all used the same vocabulary for so many years that it's kind of hard to change. And so maybe make a document of words that you want to replace, right? Policy help or policy assistance, your insurance assistance. The other things I like to change out a little bit so that it's a different type of conversation for statement of charges. Instead of your bill, your statement of charges or your transaction summary, payment arrangement, right? Or financial options. These are all good ways to reframe the conversations. And the insurance verification process can also be automated with practice software. But you want to make sure that if you select different language than what's in there, be sure to customize the program. And most programs, you can do that quite easily. I'm going to add one more P into the category under patients, and we're going to talk about parents or care providers. Although they're not the patient, but they are not just passive observers. They're partners in prevention. And they're the ones that are making the daily decisions that shape the habits and the product choices and the dental visits. You know, how consistently the children are coming in for their visits. So as dental professionals, we've got to understand two things. Number one, we have to understand the parental perspective, right? And so most of the parents that I see, they're time stressed. They are in information overload. You know, they're going every different direction. And if we have a conversation about oral hygiene for their children, they usually say it's a battle, right? It's just a daily battle to get the kids to brush on a regular basis. They are the primary care decision makers for pediatric oral care. And so they influence the habits, they influence the product choices, and they're also influencing the visits and the number of times the children are coming in for their dental visits. And so we've got to provide really clear, simple, and tech-informed communication for them and customize it to them. The second thing we want to understand is how to speak their language. And so, for example, if we're talking about children brushing habits and highlighting the benefits from their perspective, it's going to remove the daily struggle, right? This new power toothbrush, and Willo is really good at removing the daily power struggle because it gives the kids independence. Those are things we want to point out to our parents. You know, does the product have an app? Does it make it fun? Is it going to give results, right? Is it going to remove more plaque than the children are currently removing with a manual toothbrush? And so if we can strengthen the oral health conversation with the parents, we're going to have better communication from the parent to the children. Think about conversation starters, right, that we can use to get information. We want them to be open-ended questions to invite honesty and engagement when we're talking to the parents. And so if we ask, how's brushing going at home? I can tell you 80% of the parents would say it's a challenge, they just don't like doing it. And so if you hear resistance or struggle, or the parents sound really frustrated, or there's gaps in the routine, that's a great way for you to introduce or to show them something that might help relieve some of those situations. Does that make sense? And so we want to use also having the discussion with empathy, because we know it's not always easy. They're going a million different ways and directions with the kids, especially if they have 2, 3, 4 kids. I live in Utah, remember? So the average number of children that people have here is 4 or 5. They are going every different direction. The other thing we want to do are share success stories, right? I have a couple kids who have started using this toothbrush, and it has decreased the number of times they've had to come in for restorative appointments, or they're having better checkups, right? And the checkups are easier because they're doing a better job at home. And ask permission to share new technology with them. Can I share something with you that's worked for some of my other patients that might be easier for your kids to use? And it might help them become more engaged and more independent with their brushing habits. It could help everyone, right? It's going to help you and the parent as the parent, and also help the kids with their oral hygiene. You also want to celebrate progress and link it to the visible outcomes, right? If they come in and they have a lot less plaque and they don't have a restorative appointment to schedule, right? Make sure that those wins are celebrated. Because if the parents feel supported by us as dental professionals, they're going to be much more likely to return to the practice on a regular basis, and they're probably going to refer their friends and family. Part of the continuum of care that we talked about early when we were talking about the Barrel Institute is the after appointment care. People give reviews when they are really satisfied or very upset, right? And I think you would agree with that. They're not the middle of the road people, right? It's either you're really upset or it was just an incredible job. So keep in mind that reviews vary based on different influences. And so it's reviews are very cultural, the way that they give a review, generational cohorts, like who is it, a baby boomer or is it a Gen Z giving the review? That's going to change the way that the review is written. And then also sexual orientation changes the way that people write reviews as well. But reviews can be a tipping point for potential clients to choose your practice over someone else's. And so reviews are really important for us to get a hold on. As soon as the patient leaves the office, you want to send them a text asking for a review. How did your appointment go? And I learned this from someone that came to my house to deliver a mattress. We were getting a Tempur-Pedic mattress. 2 guys came to deliver it. And the one guy, his name was Eric, he was amazing. He said and did every single thing right. He was very polite. He introduced himself. He introduced his team member. Like, he did everything right from a customer service appointment perspective. And when I got their link to give them a review, it said, please include the names of any team members you'd like to recognize. And so I did. And it's a great way for someone to get kudos that maybe they didn't even know that the patient recognized the things that they did for them. So I really like adding that into your review question. Here's an AI tip for you with reviews. Take all of the reviews that your office has received and ask AI to analyze the top 3 words or phrases your positive reviews include and add them into your marketing to your patients. And so if painless is one word and friendly is another word, whatever the 3 words or phrases are that come to the top, the cream of the crop, take those words or take those phrases and use them in your marketing. Because if your patients are talking about it, that's what they're looking for, right? It's a great way for you to use that information and to obtain new clients, to obtain new patients. Responding directly in the platform with a thank you from your team for all reviews. You want to respond to every review, good, bad, and ugly, right? Negative reviews are really very humbling, and they're hard to respond to, right? But it also allows us a chance to improve the patient experience. So you want to respond directly in the platform to show other potential patients that you value feedback, but you also have to remain HIPAA compliant. Okay. So create a 4-step formula to respond to a negative review. Good reviews are easy to respond to, but make sure that you're responding. Use like a 4-part formula. So thank you, minimal apology, focus on the customer experience, and provide a call to action. So I've made an example for you. Thank you for sharing your feedback. We're sorry your experience didn't match your expectations. Because of privacy regulations, we can't discuss the specifics of your comments publicly. However, we're committed to providing you with high quality care and take your feedback very seriously. Please review the private message we sent to you. Our patient experience manager will call to discuss your experience. We'd love to make things right if you give us another chance, right? We recently hired a consultant that will be reaching out to you, or we have a patient experience manager. And the response also offers to take the conversation offline, and that demonstrates that you really genuinely desire to make it right and to engage with the patient and solve the problem. And quite often, when you get a bad review, it's a misunderstanding. And if you reach out to the patient and communicate directly, quite often you will learn that the patient just misinterpreted something that happened. And so it's a really good habit to get into. Right. Again, do not use the same one over and over, because people will see through that very quickly. They'll look at other responses and see that you have a template response. Harold opened the door for me at 6 a.m. as I was carrying this huge 35-pound box and my computer bag and supplies for my presentation that day. And here's how the conversation went. Harold said to me, "Oops, I'm sorry. I went a little bit ahead of myself." Harold said, "Good morning, Miss Lisa. How are you ready for your big day today?" And he had this real heavy Southern drawl. And I said, "Hi, Harold. How are you doing today?" Because I'd met him the day before. I said, "Do you have a cart that I could take my my box and my supplies to the room today?" And he said, "I'm sorry, Miss Lisa. We don't have a cart for you, but you look really fit and strong." And he did the big, muscle man. And he said, "I know you can make it to the room. It's real close." And in my head, I'm thinking, yeah, he's right. I am fit. I am strong. So off I went towards the stairs, and I got about 3 steps into it, and the heel of my shoe slipped off the back of my heel. So I stopped. I regrouped. I put the box on the railing. I slid it down as I navigated the steps. And Harold is watching me the whole time. He's cheering. He's like, "That's it, Miss Lisa. Keep going. When you get to the bottom of the stairs, you're going to turn left. Now turn right, Miss Lisa, and you just keep going down that hall. You're almost there." This is Harold. I wanted to introduce you to him because he had the best customer service centric approach I've ever seen. Right? His attitude impacted me so much that day that I told this story in my workshop, and this was at the Rocky Mountain Dental Convention a couple years ago, actually. And he is a customer service hero. I'm always going to remember him. I've told this story so many times because I think it's so valuable to give an example of how we impact people with conversation. What if every one of our dental practices, or every one of our dental patients, and every one of our team members felt as special as he made me feel that day? And that for those 3 days, actually, every morning, "Hi, Miss Lisa, how are you?" So why my challenge to you is, let's commit to creating a positive experience, team and patient centric, in our dental practices every day by enhancing our communication skills. Right? Think about Harold and what we can do to make people feel special. So this is a great place for us to just pause for a minute. And Katya, I'm going to check in. Do we have any questions that came in?
Not that I have seen, no.
Perfect. Okay, you guys, step up. Time to start asking questions. All right, now we're going to move on and we're going to talk about the players, which is you. When communication is not well defined or delivered, we become less impactful as a team. And it's also about really getting everybody on the same page so we're all saying the same thing. A healthy practice really requires proactive leadership. And we need to all be leaders at a given time because we all have strengths and we all have weaknesses. And so each person should take a lead in their strength when it's appropriate. According to Gallup Workplace, your employee experience is your employment brand. And a lot of companies focus on the strategy of the business, which is about the how and the money. And we definitely need this structure. However, culture outranks strategy every single time. Culture outranks strategy. Culture is all about the tangible actions and beliefs of your team. It's the pulse of your practice. And it's about what happens when the leader, not the boss, when the leader leaves the room. Do we all continue to act the same way, whether the leaders are there or not? So a strong culture continues to gain momentum by just inspiring people to conform to it. It individually and indivisibly links everyone together, no matter what department we're in. Roger Levin of the Levin Group has a 30-year ongoing study of the top 10% of the producing practices in the US. And one of the things that they found were there are very certain, very distinctive procedures or accountability within the practice that makes them that top 10%. Every team member does what they agreed to do, which leads to an efficient practice. And there's thoughtful delegation, meaning it reduces stress and energy sucking follow-up. Follow-up takes a lot of our time up, especially the administrative positions. Follow-up is really a time sucker. And we don't have to do it as much if we communicate more clearly from the beginning. And so the 6 ways to improve your accountability are: number 1, have deadlines. If we don't have deadlines, then people don't feel like they're accountable. They're being held to be accountable. Number 2, allow for deadline flexibility. If a project really doesn't seem attainable for the deadline that you have agreed to, have an open conversation and encourage comments so that you can create a new strategy that's going to allow you to complete the task in a more reasonable amount of time. But it can't just be, I'm not going to get this done. You have to give a reason for why the deadline seems to not be obtainable. Explain your desired results. If you're initiating a new task, the people that are going to be implementing the task have to really understand the task that's being assigned. And then encourage questions, right? People need to be able to feel comfortable asking questions in order to be able to complete the task. But if they don't feel safe in an environment, that's not going to happen. And then the task is not going to get completed. And so the more accountable the team, the more efficient the practice is going to be, and the better the systems are going to be followed. I love this study. I keep track of it because I just love to see what the top 10% are actually accomplishing and doing that makes them fit into that category. When communication breaks down or mistakes happen, our instincts, our natural instincts are to be maybe a little bit blameful, right? We kind of instantly have that reaction. And blame creates defensiveness and it shuts down solutions. And so what we want to do instead is lead with curiosity, right? We want to foster understanding and growth and problem solving. And so try using conversation starters like this. Help me to understand. I use that one a lot. And I also use tell me more about that, right? They invite an explanation rather than assigning the fault. And it encourages people to elaborate and reveal the root causes of what happened. A couple others: what would make this easier next time? That's a simple question to ask at the end of an explanation or the end of a conversation. What support do you need going forward? That's another great one. And so think about how to start a conversation differently than maybe the way that we instinctually react. And curiosity is going to open up dialogue too. It helps uncover the root causes. It's going to reduce tension and it builds trust with people because they feel safer having that conversation. And so this mindset is going to encourage accountability without shame. That's the big difference. Dentistry, I think you've all been hearing about the dentistry shortages of team members, and we can't find a hygienist, we can't find an assistant, we need a new office manager. And so it's never been a better time to begin using bidirectional leadership, right? By upskilling people and reskilling people on a regular basis, it's going to help us reduce a lot of the things that are happening in dentistry right now. Number one, it's going to help us reduce turnover. Secondly, it's going to help promote team engagement. And third, we're going to increase our productivity. So bidirectional leadership, it just links everyone together, no matter what role you play on the team. And so if you're hiring somebody, hire for attitude and train them for the skills. But everybody should be able to share the things that they're strong in. Like for me, I told you I was in implantology for my whole career. And so my conversation about implants, I love talking about implants. I love helping people understand what an implant is and how the process evolves. I'm also love creating dialogue with patients that are interested in whitening. So those were my go-tos, right? If I had free time and somebody wanted a discussion about that, we would kind of move around in our office a lot. And so those were my strengths. I was the go-to for implants and whitening. Other people have other strengths that I wasn't as good in. So go to the person who you know is going to get the job done, in other words. When everyone's voice is heard and valued, we're inspired to go above and beyond what's been done before. And so it's not the leader's job to have all the ideas. It's to make sure all the ideas are heard and collectively the best ideas supported by the team. So we all have to be in agreement. Okay, we had 5 ideas. This one is probably the one that we can implement the best and get the best result from. But everybody should be a part of that decision. Effective communication starts with active listening. And the definition of active listening is the act of mindfully hearing and attempting to comprehend the meaning of words spoken by another in a conversation or in a speech. And so active listening involves all of our senses, right? It's one of the most important skills that we can have. And yet many of us fall short when it comes to active listening. How well you listen has a major impact on your job effectiveness and on the quality of your relationships with others. So we listen to obtain information, we listen to understand, we listen for enjoyment, and we listen to learn. So you would think, given all the listening that we do, you would think we'd be really good at it, but in fact, we're not. In fact, research shows us that somewhere between 25 and 50% of what we hear, when we're talking to somebody, people only hear 25 to 50% of what we've said. So think about that patient that you talk to about periodontal treatment and they go out to the reception area and you say, okay, Pam is going to schedule you for that first periodontal procedure we talked about today. And they look at you like you are nuts. They look at you like you have 3 heads because they didn't hear what you were saying to them. And so what that means for us is when we talk to our boss or our colleagues or our clients or our spouses for 10 minutes, they pay attention to less than half of it. By becoming a better listener, really focusing our attention on listening and not thinking about giving the answer, we talked about that earlier, you can improve your productivity as well as your ability to influence, persuade, and negotiate. And the real bonus is avoid conflict, right? Or misunderstandings. And so better listening skills are really necessary for workplace success. The secret sauce is to break down the patterns of expectations. And so your patients engage emotionally. And this is a photo of one of my previous bosses. He interacting with a new client. And it was before the clinical exam. So no barriers, just a conversation in the operatory. We would a lot of times do this in the consult room. We didn't have it available that day, but he was the best in the business when it came to relating to the patients. He practiced active listening really, really well. And he also asked intentional questions. He would barely pick up an instrument when they moved into the clinical aspect of the appointment. He'd barely pick up an instrument. And when the patient came out to the desk, they'd be, oh my gosh, this is the best dentist I've ever had. And it was because he created a relationship. He had a conversation with them. There's a great book that I want to recommend to you if you're interested in learning more about active listening. It's by Kate Murphy, and it's called You're Not Listening, What You're Missing, and Why It Matters. So again, Kate Murphy, You're Not Listening, What You're Missing, and Why It Matters. Really good on active listening. The younger the generation, the higher the expectation for ongoing coaching and mentorship. And so traditional feedback focuses on the past, right? It's a mistake that's already happened and it can't be fixed. And it creates a very negative conversation with somebody because it's one directional, right? It's feedback that happened, it's something that happened. And so it's typically a negative experience. It's like a manager to the employee, and it's very episodic, it's infrequent, and it's isolated. What we really want is for timely, open, honest conversations, two-way conversations to strengthen relationships rather than one-sided dialogue and criticism. So coaching conversations are collaborative, and they create a really mutual solution that focuses on the employee's strengths or future potential. And so what you want to think about at the end of a conversation, a coaching conversation, is how did the patient or how did the person feel after they interacted with you? Or how does the team feel about a new initiative or product for product implementation? So think about being a coach or a mentor versus a boss or a more one-sided leadership aspect. I developed the communication coaching loop so teams could really visualize what should occur in every conversation. And so when we use this consistently, it's going to build stronger conversations, smoother workflows, and better outcomes. And it's pretty simple, right? First of all, say it. Be intentional, be clear, share information, instructions, feedback, whatever they need to support what this conversation is about. Then you want to check for clarity, right? Don't assume that everybody understood you, and ask questions. Does that make sense? Did I explain myself well? Clarity reduces mistakes and confusion. And then last, you want to follow up. So reinforce the message with a check-in. Just how's it going? Are you having any struggles with what we talked about the other day? Follow through really shows that you care and that communication is a two-way street. Right? When we use this loop consistently, it's going to build stronger conversations and better outcomes. People are going to go above and beyond what's expected of them if they feel appreciated, and create something special in your office. Like we had a caught you being amazing moments, right? What can you do that maybe you saw something that happened that nobody else saw, right? We had in our office, we used what we called a traveling trophy. And every Friday, that was the end of the week for us, every Friday, a team member passes a trophy, and the trophy can be anything. It can be a plaque, it can be flowers, it can be a cake, it can be a card. So every Friday, a team member passes the trophy to another team member for recognition of something they did that week. And that person keeps it until the following week. And so it creates an environment of people noticing more about what's happening around them. Because sometimes, one person sees something happen, nobody else knows it happened, and it was amazing, right? They went above and beyond their role as a dental professional. And so create those moments and recognize those moments for people. The other idea that I love is creating a gratitude jar. Practicing gratitude and saying thank you can reduce negativity and stress in your workplace, and it drastically improves team relationships. And so you can do this a couple different ways. I'm just going to give you two ideas. You can have a jar with a piece of paper and pen or writing something next to it, and you just write down something that happened that you're grateful for that day, that week, whatever. You can sign it, you can not sign it. It's very open-ended, and put it in the jar. The other way you can do it is have a small area with sticky notes next to it and pencils or pens, and you can have all of the gratitude notes showing on the board. And so what we did in our office, we had it in an area where it was just the employees. We'd stick a note in there. I'm grateful for our amazing doctors and team and the care we provide to patients, right? And so we'd put them in there. And what happened was I was taking a patient out from the hygiene room, and the assistant was actually writing a note and putting it in our jar. And the patient said, "Hey, what's that?" And so we explained what it was. And he was like, "Well, I want to write one." And so we started putting it in an area where the patients could also put into the gratitude jar. And it was so fun. At our monthly meetings, we read the gratitudes and we read them out loud, and people were recognized for things that a lot of us didn't even know happened. So no, two good ways to just really think about catching somebody doing something special. This is George. He was a scout at a meeting that I was speaking at. We were talking after a break, and I noticed he had a small giraffe pin on his lapel, and you can see it on his left shoulder there. And I said, "What's up with the giraffe?" And he said his boss gave it to him, and to thank him for sticking his neck out. And he wears it everywhere. How simple is that, right? He wears it all the time because it was really special that his boss noticed that he kind of went above and beyond, and he wanted to say thank you. So we could do something like that as well. It's a really simple, effective way to express appreciation to our team members. The last thing we're going to cover today is the impact the conversations have on our practice. And so in order to improve our relationships, we've got to align our words with our actions. And if you look at this picture, the body language is so good here. They have eye contact, they're both smiling, they're matching each other's body language. If we have one without the other, it sends a mixed message. So think about replacing simple language replacements for a better connection with our patients. And so they understand. Remember, I talked about really simplifying our language that we're using so patients have a better understanding and they're more likely to follow through with what we're recommending. And so instead of extraction, maybe removal. Remember, it's simple for the patient. This is in our language because that's what we use every day, right? Couple that I love on this list, instead of confirm, remind. And the reason I like the word remind, hi, I'm calling to remind you of the appointment you scheduled 6 months ago. When they scheduled it 6 months ago, it was confirmed. Now we're calling to remind them. All right. Follow-up appointment. I love healing evaluation, oral inflammation and oral wellness plan instead of gum disease or treatment plan. I like all of those. So something you could do is take common words that you use in your practice. Maybe you're general, maybe you're oral surgeon, maybe you're endo, whatever your practice is, take the common words that you use that are our language, our dental professional language, and come up with a replacement that's better suited for the patient. It's a great activity to do at an all-team meeting. An
Lisa,
intentional, oh yeah.
I'm so sorry. Yeah, a question came through. I think it was for the previous slide around recognition. And the specific question was, what if your office chooses not to acknowledge staff during those moments? I believe it was around the moments of appreciation.
So say the question again. What if your office
chooses not to acknowledge staff during those moments? That person has tried to, as a hygienist, to appreciate the DAs, but office manager or the dentist did not.
I would say that's a conversation to have at a team meeting. Like if you have an all team meeting, and I don't know the whole situation behind that conversation, but if you have team meetings, say, hey, I think it's important for us to recognize each other for the great jobs we're doing and that other people aren't seeing. Can we start a staff appreciation project, right? And suggest one of the 2 or 3 things that I came up with because it's something that's really important to people to be recognized. And some people like the open recognition, and other people like a little bit more private, right? And you have to know that between the teams. But it's super important for the team to, if you feel that the recognition needs to be really part of the team culture, it's something that you should discuss as a team. I hope that answered it. If you have a part two, add it into the chat and I'll answer that as well. Okay, so intentional patient handoff improves communication, perceived value, and commitment to your practice, and the appointment schedule, right? And so the patient experience is a critical aspect of the practice success. So fine tune your handoffs, right? Use your team members' names. Introduce yourself every single time the patient comes in. Wear name tags. I'm a big advocate of wearing name tags. You should always wear your name tag on your right side. So if you shake hands with a person or fist bump or whatever the acknowledgement is, most people are looking at your right shoulder, and it's a great way for them to be able to see your full name. And also put your full position. Don't just abbreviate RDH or CDA, RDA. Put your full position, because people don't remember our names each time they come in. So reintroduce yourself when your patient handoff. Let's say they had an appointment with the hygienist and then they're seeing the doctor. Introduce them to the assistant that's going to be working with them after the hygienist handoff, right? So Sally, this is Carol. She's going to be working with doctor on your restorative appointment. She'll be out for you in a couple minutes, right? A well-executed handoff really improves patient care, but it enhances the efficiency of your practice as well. So we want to think beyond clinical tools, right? Today's products are really designed to benefit both the patient outcomes and the practice growth. So whether it's a software platform, like the Practice by Numbers is what you see in the picture here, prescription medications or medicaments that you carry in your office, PerioGel, PerioProtect, or power toothbrushes like Willo, right? If you have them in your office to improve oral hygiene. So many of the companies offer practice boosting perks like digital dispensing, right? So you can streamline the product access for the patient, discounts, product demos or models that are available for you to show the patient how to use them, patient education material, and then ambassador programs. And you'll learn a little bit more about the Willo ambassador programs at the end of the program tonight. But think about choosing partnerships of products that add value and support your care and elevate the bottom line, as well as enhance the patient oral hygiene. In a speaker's world, your first impression to get you off on the right foot is the second most valuable strategy to focus on. Your last impression is the most important. And so to apply that to dentistry, think about it like this. What impression did you leave the patient with as they walked out the door? Did you formally say goodbye to them? Did you tell the patient you're still available if they have questions? Have you given them the next steps, right? Have you given them a call to action so that they have a really clear understanding of the expectations? Super important to make the patient feel like they were seen, heard, and valued while they're walking out the door after that appointment. Intentional conversation is a lot like cooking. And if any of you are cooks out there, you'll get this completely, even if you're not, right? The individual ingredients, we take them all and we blend them together and we get this delicious dish. So in dentistry, our ingredients are the diverse ways that we interact with the patients and the players or the team members. The practicing our active listening, it's our language choices, it's our patient handoff. And the spices that we add in are the way that we customize the interactions, right? It's going to make it different for every single person to change that flavor just a little bit. And the outcome, a fresh strategy of focusing on intentional communication and practicing growth, and a practice that grows from every single angle. So my challenges to you are to pick one or two things from today's presentation from the patient, players, or the practice areas, and have a team meeting, talk about what you can implement from this presentation, and start to implement some of the ideas of intentional conversation, right? And just pick one or two. I've given you some examples there to think about. So I wanted to share one of the twins is the culprit of the tomato plant incident. So I never had a garden because they ate the tomato plants before I even started. And I soon realized that I don't have the right yard for growing tomato plants. So now I'm still buying them and still missing my dad's homegrown tomatoes. This mama is named Roxy. She lived to be 19 years old and in a very famous, she's very famous in Park City. She gave birth to twins and triplets a lot, which is really rare, I guess, for female moose. And she even had her own social media page. So they spent a lot of time in our backyard. Yeah, and you guessed it, right where the tomato plants would have been. This is last October, or 2 Octobers ago, I think. So I want to thank you for the opportunity to present this program. I want to conclude today with a video by a company that's known for its outstanding customer and team communication service. Can you guys all hear that? I just want to double check. There's just music. I should have cued the tissue box. Forgot about that. It always gets me. Just like my garden, every aspect of the practice requires that customized nurturing. And so remember that every person has a story and every conversation has a consequence. This concludes the CE portion of our program, and I want to shout out to Willo for supporting this session and making it possible. If you're curious about Willo, you can scan the QR code and get more information about scheduling an appointment to learn more about it, to learn about the ambassador program. And also, if you'd like more information on having it in your office or having a demo in your office in their ambassador program. And so we're going to finish with some questions. I'm sorry we ran a little bit late. And if we have any questions, I can answer those. And then we'll finish up with the QR code for the CE.
Perfect. Thank you, Lisa. Before we start with the questions, I wanted to, again, thank you for sharing such thoughtful insights on how we can be more effective in communicating and influencing team members, patients, parents, by listening, using empathy, simplifying the communication, following up, truly understanding their needs. That video you showed at the end, yes, indeed, you needed to queue up the tissue
I'm
box.
sorry, I forgot to cue the tissues.
But it was really meaningful and a great reminder that every person has a story,
Mhm.
and a struggle of sorts, or something that needs to be considered in the approach that we apply to them. So leading with curiosity, and to your point during the presentation, is so critical and so important. And I like how you highlighted also another theme in your presentation about oral care and the struggle. So in terms of stories and the emotions that parents could go through, parents and patients,
Yes,
and
and you
the
and I
ethic.
have had that conversation because you have 3 children. I don't have children, but I mean, I have a lot of friends that have kids, and so many of my patients have children. And so I've learned how stressful it is from so many different aspects, but from oral hygiene for this particular night.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And here at Willow, that's exactly what we honed in on and listened to, that struggle, the challenges that both parents and kids are experiencing for brushing, even with the best intentions, the struggles that dental professionals as well, like yourself, for everybody that is
Hmm.
listening to us, also experiences, because there's so much time and focus spent on taking care of the teeth in the office, extending then to what needs to be done at home, and it is so difficult then to um, then progress that care in the home, that consistent care in the home, and that's what Willow does. That actually nicely leads into one of the questions I see online: what is the Willow device?
Oh, well,
Um,
I'm going to let you answer that.
So the Willow device is the first fully automated toothbrush for children. It's intended for children 5 to 13. And I like how you have the image there. When we say fully automated, it's fully automated. So it includes the toothpaste, the red bottle that you see, that is the toothpaste, liquid toothpaste that flows into the U-shaped mouthpiece. And at a push of a button, the brush head starts gently moving left to right. Actually, it has a little bit of a motion, basically to replicate the aid, or to replicate the ideal Bass technique. Um, and during the actual brushing, so toothpaste flows into the mouthpiece. During the brushing, suctions out excess liquid, which is also a big differentiator. I can probably talk for another half an hour at the very least about the device, but point being is, fully automated device, works at a push of a button. The one on the right hand side that you see, so there's the one for the toothpaste. The one on the right hand side is the handheld version. That is the new product we're launching in less than a month. The same mode of action, but clinically proven to remove 7 times more plaque than manual toothbrush alone. So Lisa, you talked about right, the desire, like what can work, what can remove more, what can work more consistently than a manual toothbrush, and that's where Willow comes in. Their clinical studies. We have actually a ton of reviews as well that you can go on willow.com and see for yourself, from parents who have already experienced tremendous positive results and share their personal experiences. And we're very happy, very proud to be sharing those with you as well. As dental professionals are key influencers in the decision for oral care for any parent. And that was I think there was another question that somehow, oh, you answered it.
Somebody said, thank you for I loved the gratitude jar idea.
Yes, yes, indeed. That is a very, very very, very important. You talked about culture and creating that strong culture. I think that's very critical.
Yeah.
There was another question, certainly welcoming more questions about Willow. Um, and I think there was another one around where you can find Willow, where you can buy Willow. So currently you can buy Willow on our website, willow.com, and on Amazon. And we have also opened for those who like TikTok, as you know, certainly we've found or parents, patients, pediatric patients as well utilize that platform. You can find it there as well, but we sell it online. And actually, we offer, at least you mentioned the ambassador program. We have an
Mhm.
option to offer it in the offices as well. So through a similar code, like the QR code you see here, patients can scan, or their parents, should I say, can scan a QR code in the office, purchase it, and technically counts as a purchase for the office. The office gets rewarded. The patient gets a coupon. So it's a very very easy program for the offices that can earn additional income and also offer to the patients a device
Yeah.
that can make a difference.
And the beautiful thing about that is I know our office has always had limited space to keep products. And so you don't have to maintain any product inventory. The patient just orders it and it comes to them directly. Any others?
Feel free to put it in the
How to
okay.
recognize How to
Mm.
recognize introverted employees when recognition events tend to go towards popular staff members. That is always a struggle because there's always people that are more seen and heard than others. And the biggest thing with that is to recognize you've got to get to know each other. And I'm a big fan of personality tests, right? You could do it with your office, and there's a slew of different ones out there. But just get to know each other and their styles of communication so that you know how each person would like to be communicated with, right? And asking directly, would you like to be recognized at our team meeting? We have this award for you, or would you like it in private? Just directly ask the person how they would like to be handled. Good question.
Mhm. Another one I see here, just in general, based on your presentation, what are the most common barriers to effective communication in the dental office?
I'm gonna go with assumptions. That's my word. Because a lot of offices, the patients, the team members, and even the leaders, they assume that they're understood without checking for clarity. So go back to using the communication coaching loop we talked about tonight. Say it, check for clarity, and follow up, because a lot of people make assumptions that they've been understood because they communicated, but people don't take action. Right. And so use that diagram that we showed and just follow that circle of communication.
Yeah, and lead with curiosity, to your point. I think that we can apply that to anything in life, actually,
Yes.
any communication and
Yep.
interaction in life.
Good
Uh,
questions, you guys. Thank you guys for sticking around a little bit long. Great questions, and I'm so happy to provide this information to you. I want to be a resource for you, and really just always here to support you and get your communication going in the right direction so that you all have very successful practices. So thank you. And thanks to Willow again for sponsoring tonight's program. And Katya,
Thank
I'll
you,
hand it
Lisa.
off to you to close it out.
Thank you, Lisa. As I said, always a pleasure. And this was a very insightful, very helpful conversation. I appreciate everyone's questions as well and participation, and wishing everyone good evening.